This is Not the Top 20 Podcasts, League 2, 1 to 24 predictions for the 26-27 season, sponsored by SBK. George and me, Ali, talking you through it from 24 to 1. Now, League 2 is more predictable than the most unpredictable league in the world, as is the Championship's trademark. Last season, for example, a title winner in Bromley, George, that was projected to finish in the bottom half of League 2, only went and won the thing.
Yeah.
So let's see how we go with it this year. We're going to start in 24th place, as is tradition. But first, we spent the summer on the England pod.
We did.
Obviously keeping up to date with all things EFL. Heartbreak, obviously, as always, but also an incredible journey. And on that journey with us were sponsors, SBK. And they're along for the thrills and spills of an EFL season as well.
Yeah, really, really excited to have SBK as the sponsors of Not the Top 20 for the season. And SBK is built for proper football fans with no casino, great odds and great features like Acca Boost, Fresh Legs, and the Bet Feed, helping make it feel different from your usual betting app. There is a link in the description, so use that. Head over there and you can get £60 in free bets when you sign up to SBK and place your first bet of £20. T&Cs apply. Make sure you read them, and you're delighted to have them on board.
And betting is for over 18s only and comes with risks, so please gamble responsibly and understand the risks that come with gambling. Heading to gambleaware.org is the best way of doing that. 24th place in this season's League 2, we think, will be
Accrington Stanley. So one of the big stances of last season's 1-24s was the reverse of this, that Accrington were actually going to be okay despite being written off as, I think they were second favourites to go down behind Newport County. But I'm not so sure this time around. Now, firstly, compared to other iterations of League 2, I do think this one feels tougher. It feels like there are fewer teams who are consistently punching above their weight to stay in the league. I think that is basically because you've got two teams that went down who are doing that to a large degree. Harrogate, certainly amazing how long they stayed in the league, and then Barrow, who flirted with being a team, towards the higher end of League 2, but I felt like their cost-cutting measures and then other issues meant that they then dwindled. And when you look at the size of the club and the fan base and stuff, it's not a massive surprise. So there are fewer teams to put down there. With Accrington, I think John Doolan has to have done one of the most underrated jobs in the EFL last season. They stayed up comfortably, but when you look at the players that they've lost, I think it's three very important players. Now, in goal, they had Ollie Wright, goalkeeper from Southampton on loan, who was very good. He's now at Gillingham, was a huge player for them. Isaac Heath, with his first loan from Everton, was a brilliant, creative, attacking player, wide player, who's now moved to League One with Cambridge. And then Paddy Madden, where we know all about Paddy Madden. I don't think he's necessarily a great League 2 player, but he was still their top scorer. So you've lost your keeper, you've lost your key wide player, and you've lost your striker. And then adding to that, Sean Wally, one of their key players, has just turned 39 in the week, and it's hard to rely on him too much. It feels like their transfer policy has moved away from what we're used to. Accrington have been, again, one of the most underrated teams in terms of what they do. They tend to target non-league, and they've done so with a couple of players here, but also their loans are normally very good, and they look at young players. Maybe that's still to come, because right now we haven't seen a single kind of PL2 loan, which is surprising from Aki. Cole Stockton comes in, who's a player who's, obviously a couple of seasons ago felt like he was a top player, but I'm not convinced that he is still really up to this. And he's had some pretty disappointing spells in recent times, both for good and bad sides. Stefan Moles and Tom Moore are the two players that come in from non-league from Tamworth and Stockport. They might be okay, but there's very little to really like from the recruitment itself. So tougher league, key players have moved on. I think they've got work to do, and we've got them 24th, sadly.
Yeah, as we saw last season, the trapdoor can open in League 2 and teams can easily drop from, for example, 16th, as Aki were, right down into a relegation battle. Teams can also, and do very regularly, come down from League 1 and fall all the way down to the bottom of
the double
League 2. In the last 4 seasons, George, 16 teams have been relegated from League 1 to League 2. Half of them have finished in the bottom 8. 3/4 of them, or more in fact, have finished in the bottom half, and 1/4 of them have finished in the bottom 4. So it is more normal for teams to be relegated and drop into the bottom half of this division, and in some cases fight relegation, than it is for them to win automatic promotion. That is what Port Vale and then Cambridge achieved, but it is quite rare. In 23rd place, we've got Northampton Town. This would be a double relegation from League One down to the National League, as we've seen a couple of times over the last few seasons. They finished bottom of League One. They were a League One team only in name last season, 35 points in 46 games, a minus 35 goal difference. But they won one of their last 26 league games after Christmas. They took a single point from their last 15 league matches, and they lost each of their last 11. This team was such a bad League One team, and consistently, as I've made the point already, those teams struggle in League Two unless something major happens to galvanise them, or unless they've already got a good squad and a new manager maybe turns things around. There is a new manager, and it's a first-time manager, but it's someone that we recognise as being Liam Manning's assistant at 4 different clubs, including your own Oxford United, and that is Chris Hogg. Now, he steps out on his own for the first time to manage Northampton in what I think are really difficult circumstances. In terms of players they've lost from last season, Cameron McGeehan, talisman for them, big goal threat. Terry Taylor was a loanee, one of their better players. Nestor Guinness-Walker, Tom Eaves and Dean Campbell, also first-team players that have left the club. But otherwise, it's broadly the same skeleton structure, if you like, and I don't think that's a very good thing. A team that lost 11 games in a row to end the season. On top of it, I don't like the additions that they've made. From the back, Zach Geacock from Lincoln on loan in goal, James Maxwell, cousin James, the left back, Janoy Donassian from Chesterfield, who hasn't looked the same player in the last couple of seasons. In midfield, Connor Lemonhay Evans, who's fine and versatile, but certainly not someone that's going to drag them out of a relegation battle if they're in one. Lee Evans is the kind of the big name, the central midfielder. They'll be lucky to get 2,000 minutes out of him, so I'm sure he'll dictate play fairly well when he's fit, but he hasn't been pretty consistently in his career. And then in more attacking areas, Harvey Saunders from Tranmere, not a great goal return, and Matty Warhurst is probably the most interesting and the one I'm most intrigued by, a young striker they signed straight up on a permanent from Manchester City. Let's see how that sort of pedigree looks in League Two. To me, the centre-backs look solid enough. That's probably where my positives start and end. Midfield looks weak. Attack looks pretty weak. I'd like to see Max Dyche, Sean Dyche's son, continue to flourish at the back, but a lot of concerns here. Combination of a first-time manager coming into a team at a low ebb. He needs an unbelievably strong personality from the man management side of things, the club management side of things, managing, turning around the atmosphere of the fans while also implementing a new style of play with players who are low on confidence and perform poorly in League One. Yeah, I'm not filled with positivity. I think a double drop could be on the cards for Northampton Town. They're in 23rd.
Right, so I relegated to Accrington Stanley and Northampton Town. SBK have a market, of course, for League Two relegation. Accrington are second favourites, they're 4.6, so just a touch bigger than 7-2. And Ali, Northampton Town, 16-1.
Wow.
For relegation. So I've got a feeling, spoiler alert, for the betting show coming up later in the week as to what your League Two relegation tip will be. There's a to finish bottom market as well with SBK. Accrington Stanley 7.8, so just a touch under 7-1, and Northampton to finish bottom, you are looking at 28.0, so 27-1 for Cobblers to finish bottom. Those prices with SBK on the SBK app. Right, in 22nd, and probably the only team in the EFL where being one place outside the relegation zone can be like a positive prediction, is Newport County, who survived just last season. Christian Fuchs was the manager who led them to safety. He left kind of midway through the summer in quite a strange move, given how successful he was initially. Hayden Mullins comes in, who was formerly Fulham's under-21 manager, comes in with a decent pedigree. It's hard to really have much of an idea as to what he's going to offer as a manager. But for Newport County, they've lost some key players, as you'd always expect. 3 key loanees, and Ben Lloyd, Nathan Opoku and Sven Sprangler, who came in January. Bobby Camwer, who was a key player for them on the left-hand side, scored some big goals late in the season, has also moved on. So, it does feel like they've lost a lot of key players, but there's a shift in my mind in terms of the actual recruitment strategy and the calibre of player that they've signed. I remember this time last year, they signed Matt Smith, who was so separate from the quality of the other players they signed in terms of where they came from. Whereas now we're seeing them sign more kind of respected and solid League Two players. Kyle Cameron being one, Cameron Norman being another one. Shame there is no Norman Kyle, otherwise that would have been a nice circle. Harrison Biggins, who spent the second half of last season on loan there too. And then just a kind of clutch of quite exciting looking players, mainly recruited from non-league, but come in with like a decent pedigree, and players who I'm excited to see. Yaya Bamba is someone who comes in with a big reputation. I'm excited to see Shaq Gwenge, who scored 47 goals last season for Poole Town. Whether or not he plays a big part or not, we'll have to see.
Bamba scored a worldie at Plough Lane on Saturday. Looked really good.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's a side that finished the season last season very well and showed that they are capable here. And if they can build on that with the squad that they've got, there aren't too many holes in the squad too. I think they could have enough to and should have enough to stay up. But I think we had them just staying up last season. We got that right, so hopefully we can repeat the trick.
Yeah, Harrison Biggins came in January as well and looked way better than I thought he would. Looked brilliant, and they've managed to get him back permanently. And he continues to look good from what I saw in that game against Wimbledon. So that's really positive. They've also got that classic group of kind of second year players who did okay, but not much better last year, that you have to hope will kick on and contribute further, and all in that kind of 22 to 25 range. I'm talking James Kroll, Lee Jenkins, Joe Thomas, Tom Davies, Cameron Evans, guys like that, Kieran Brennan as well. I'll be interested to see how they go. I don't want it to seem to Northampton fans like we're kind of picking on them from that relegated quad, because we've got another relegated side in 21st, George. We think Exeter City might struggle too.
Yeah, I think fair to say you've got huge concerns about Cobblers, and I've got huge concern about the Grecians. Really worried about Exeter. When you look at the way they finished last season with Gary Caldwell moving on, and to Wigan, and the way that they ended the season in really poor form, they're like a really poor side from then on. And then you consider the players that they've lost. Niskanen, who was such an important player for them, a right back who's moved on to Blackpool, but also the two loanees, and Ethan Brearley in the middle of the park, and Joe Whitworth, their keeper. Those are three players who are at the very, very least, good League One players who've now moved on. And Jaden Wareham is still there. The reports from kind of the local press is that there hasn't been much interest, or seemingly no bids in him, which is surprising. If he stays, that's obviously a huge result for them. But I still would think, given how
later he leaves is not very helpful for them.
Exactly.
If it is late,
and given how in demand strikers are, and clearly he's had a very, very difficult summer with personal reasons as well, which I guess may play into that too. When you look at the players that have come in, I mean, it's pretty bleak, I would say, for a League One relegated side to be bringing in a 33-year-old Gwion Edwards, who's most recently been at Morecambe, Taylor Perry, Josh Gordon. These are guys who've kind of struggled to really prove themselves, I guess, of being good League Two players. Matt Taylor's manager, who of course led Exeter out of this league a few years ago, he's had a tough time since leaving there. Didn't go too well at Rotherham. Obviously couldn't turn them around last season at the back end at Exeter. So yeah, it follows the pattern in my mind of teams who've gone before them who've had this double drop where the good team that went up has been picked off. They come down a really poor version of themselves, then get even worse. And we know that Exeter have some serious financial issues in terms of not being able to raise the funds to spend in the way that their divisional rivals spend, and that's even the case in League Two as well. So yeah, afraid to say I'm not particularly confident of Exeter being able to force their way up towards the top end of the table. I think it could be a long season for them if they don't. Ideally I would say is they would sell Wareham and reinvest that money, but it doesn't look on the cards now.
Here's an opinion on Exeter's squad about players being competitive in League Two. The quote is, "Too many within the squad aren't ready for that yet. You train with 20 players and 8 to 10 of them at this moment in time are not League Two footballers." That's the manager, Matt Taylor there.
Yeah.
It's a big task. But they've got their eyes open about it. Like, they know that they're going to have to rely on a crop of academy players. And thankfully, Exeter's academy has been a big focus for them. Charlie Cummins, we should all be excited to watch. Ed James as well. Those are the ones who've already kind of broken through. But a ton of other names that we might see more of. Liam Oakes, Pedro Elawar, Sonny Cox, Kieran Wilson, George Birch, guys like that. We think it's going to be a tough season for them. And frankly, for Crawley Town, look, a finish of 20th for Crawley Town would be a rise of 2 places from last season, where they finished 22nd with 40 points. They were so lucky not to be a non-league team right now. And they only weren't because they were part of a League Two with a number of other poor teams in it. And I think that could be the case again this year. They brought in Colin Kazim-Richards with 8 or 10 games to go, and they got 2 big wins under him early on, which were basically the reason why they stayed up, because the season did end winless in 5. Thankfully for them, there were 2 worse teams. So Colin Kazim-Richards, it's his first senior manager's job. He was coaching under 15s at Arsenal before then. It's been a bonkers few years for Crawley Town, right?
Yes.
They were favourites for relegation from League Two 3 seasons ago and won promotion. And they did so with owners who were American crypto bros that basically everyone hated, but who managed to land on a manager and a squad of pretty random recruits that clicked in one of the most exciting ways ever. They did get relegated from League One in their first season, having given it a decent go, and they nearly went back-to-back relegations last year, and now they're back to being among the favourites for relegation in League Two. They tried to get Scott Lindsay back and put the band back together. That was a disaster, and now it's up to Colin Kazim-Richards. Plenty of turnover, as always, at Crawley. They love the transfer market, and they're pretty fun in it. They've lost Josh Flint, probably the key departure. Others like Harry Forster, Harry McCurdy, Dion Conroy. These were... they were kind of senior players for them last season that didn't always step up, didn't play very consistently. The names of their recruits are absolutely unbelievable. Pele Arganese McDermott, centre-back from Tottenham.
Why not?
Priestley Farquharson, we've known him for a long time, but the name
Still
never gets old.
Yeah.
Ty Ewans Finley from Charlton, Jude Arthurs from Bromley, Stephen Duke McKenna from Harrogate, Gianmarco Di Biase from Juventus. Pemi Aderoju.
Juventus Next Gen.
From Peterborough Next Gen, Pemi Aderoju. Claudio Krasniki from Glacis United.
That's one of my favourite names, that one.
Malcolm Ebiove from Unattached. Jackson Izquierdo from Crystal Palace, a goalkeeper. And Omari Mrisho, right back from Huddersfield.
Wow, Vito Manone.
And Vito Manone. He's not on my list.
They've signed 2 players basically from time out of football in Ebiove and Manone.
I thought Manone was coming in to be goalkeeper coach, and then he started in their Carabao Cup games so far. Look, sometimes it feels like Crawley Town is a social experiment as much as it is a football club. I struggle to take it and them quite seriously, and I should say that's not the fans who are amazing and put up with a lot and, need to check their heart rates over the last few years. But I can't really take my eyes off it. There's stuff that I like. They have individual quality and skill and flair in Dion Pereira, Malcolm Ebiove, Stephen Duke McKenna, if they're all switched on, fit and up for it. Will they be? I don't know. I like Louis Watson as an attacking midfielder. In midfield, you've got Jay Williams, Jude Arthurs, Krasniki. I like what I saw from him in the Carabao Cup games. At the back, I'm expecting them to be a shambles, to be honest. They conceded about 93 shots against Watford. They looked all at sea aerially against York and were fortunate to keep a clean sheet. Lots of concerns, really. Defensively, aerial reliability, consistency, the speculative recruitment. Whether Colin Kazim-Richards is any good or not, we don't know yet. Whether he can turn this lot into a coherent side, we don't know yet. I think they'll be down there. We've got them in 20th. That might seem like a positive prediction, but in my eyes, it's not necessarily. And certainly in my eyes, George, that there's now a bit of a jump, really. I'm quite confident in that bottom 5.
We had the same bottom 5, didn't we? I know a couple of different, but yeah, I'm with you.
And then we jump up to Cheltenham Town in 19th.
Yes. Finished 18th last season. I think this will surprise a few. I think there is this kind of assumption that Steve Cotterill just brings success. I'm not entirely sure that's true.
You can see why Cheltenham fans feel like that's the case, because Cheltenham born and bred,
of course,
took them into the Football League and returned 23 years after leaving, and then obviously did a great job last season.
Did an amazing job last season, and I'm someone who wouldn't look at his time at Shrewsbury or at Forest Green particularly fondly, and I wasn't convinced that he was the right man when he came in, but he absolutely was. What I would caveat that with is that clearly by the end of the season, results had fallen off again to a pretty poor level. And if, like me, you look at XG data and underlying numbers, even during the good periods, they were projecting really poor numbers, and which suggests that maybe there was some individual quality within there. I think when you consider they had Hakeem Adelakun playing until January, when you consider they had Isaac Hutchinson with a kind of career best season with 15 goals from kind of attack midfield, that might have been the case. Now, Adelakun obviously left in Jan. Isaac Hutchinson has also gone after his 2 loan spells at the club last season. Jordan Thomas, who's been an important player for them on the wing, has also moved up to League One on a free transfer. So two really important, their two best attacking players by quite some distance have left in this summer. Now, the signings they've made are very Cotterill, I would say. He's reunited with Jordan Shipley, but there's also just a lot of kind of EFL minutes in the players that he's brought in. Joe Tomlinson, Sean McWilliams, Pierre Sweeney. These are guys who should settle in and ensure that they are solid. A lot of minutes there. I'm not sure there's much quality there. I think if you are predicting Cheltenham Town to finish anywhere higher than kind of lower mid-table, it's a massive, massive leap of faith in terms of what Steve Cotterill can do with a relatively limited group of players. And I'm not really willing to do that. I'm not really sure who scores the goals. And as I say, underlying numbers last season were poor, and I don't see any reason why that would change. So I can't really make a case for them improving on last season.
18th, Gillingham finished 17th last season with 53 points. For the third season in a row, they started well, were towards the top of the table at the end of August and into September. In fact, last season they had their longest ever unbeaten run to start a league season. And they followed it up with 7 wins in 37 games after their first defeat, after 9 games unbeaten. Very bizarre. It did coincide with their manager, Gareth Ainsworth, having to have heart surgery, which put him out of action for a short period. He's now very much back. But for whatever reason, they really lost their grip on things, and when he returned, they didn't get it back. He's been backed by the owner, Brad Gallinson, whose ownership of Gillingham has been full of intent and quite a lot of cash injection and completely lacking in any success whatsoever. He's backed both Gareth Ainsworth and Ainsworth's longtime assistant, Richard Dobson, who's now the technical director, has moved upstairs, if you like, and Ainsworth's got some fresh faces in his dugout to support him in terms of his staff. They've had a bit of a refresh. They gave out some bad contracts a couple of years ago, which were a bit of a weight around their neck. They managed to remove that, and they've lost about half of their minutes from last season, which is a lot of churn. But frankly, some of the players weren't particularly high-performing players. Anyway, the biggest loss probably Sam Gale, who's gone to Barnsley. They've also lost the fullbacks, Hutton and Clark, and the goalkeeper, Morris. Now, the keeper has been replaced, I think, pretty well by Ollie Wright, who was good loanee at Accrington last season at this level. Quite a lot of signings, and a lot of them quite young. Samuel Tabarez of Southampton, a defender. Conor McManus from Brentford, a defender. Zayn Alvarez from Brighton, a midfielder. You got Liam Gordon, grizzled centre-back from Motherwell, and some other older guys. Kadeem Harris, winger from Salford. James Brophy, wide player from Cambridge. Youngster Sheldon Kendall on loan from Millwall, another winger. Nick Freeman comes in as well, experienced and versatile as well. So they're a bit younger, which is interesting, and I keep being told by Gills fans that there'll be some academy players played this season, which I'm always excited about, and I didn't really see that coming. Other positives would be I like the striker options. Ronan Hale looked pretty good after being signed for like 250k, and looked pretty good. I like Seb Palmer-Holden. I think he could have a better season this year. And Will Goodwin, we know is a good striker in League Two, if he can stay fit, which he hasn't really for a number of years now. Lots of concerns, though. Really light on senior defenders, which for how I picture a Gareth Ainsworth squad and team and defence doesn't line up in my mind. You've got Gordon, you've got Omar Beckles, and then it's kind of Freeman, and then a lot of young defenders. The midfield options don't get me very excited. They are a bunch of fine players, but not much more. A bit of reliance on Bradley Dack and Gareth McCleary for quality at the top of the pitch, who are both getting on a bit. Brophy and Harris are both decent players, but well into their 30s as well. Is there a clear tactical plan here? Maybe, but I haven't seen it yet, and I can't quite picture it based on the squad and pre-season and the first Carabao Cup game. I don't think this summer refresh, recruitment-wise, looks like an obvious upgrade on what they had before, and that was mostly underperforming players. So, if this is still an ambitious project and a big budget for the level, it doesn't really look or feel like that to me. Maybe Ainsworth will get more out of this unit. Maybe they'll be more suited to his style of play and his management, but I'm far from convinced. And frankly, right now with Ainsworth, I have no idea what to think about him more broadly as a manager in 2026. Had one of the best managerial tenures of the last 25 years at Wycombe Wanderers, and has struggled at QPR and at Gills. And I think they're going to finish 18th. Now, the new season is very exciting to both of us. And we're having a party. We're having a party this Friday, which is Friday the 14th. It's in London. It's in Bermondsey. It is at the Volley South. And it's a venue...
Formerly the Blue Monk.
It's a venue that we know well.
Yes.
And in which we love to watch football with our friends and listeners of pods and drink beers and have fun.
Yeah, it's a great venue, formerly the Blue Monk, where we had some of our England pod watch parties. I've been reliably informed they've now got air conditioning, which is handy, so it's going to be hot on Friday. Wolves against Blackburn, we're going to be there. We're going to do something before we need to actually work it out. We're going to be up on stage doing a bit of a Q&A before the game as well. You can grill us on our 1-24, so please do come if you live in London or in the surrounding area. It'll be a chance to have a couple of drinks, watch some football, have a good chat, meet some like-minded EFL fans. The link is in the show description. Either a £5 for a ticket, or if you buy a £10 ticket, then you get a free pint. If you can have a pint, I'll probably do that, because pints cost more than a £5 in London. So there you go.
Be great to see you there. Be great to see some Gills fans there. Not too far on the train. Let's talk.
Okay, 17th now, and my love affair with Fleetwood Town is over.
Oh no!
Yeah, and so this is probably the season where they're going to go win the league. It's Fleetwood in 17th. Matt Lawler came in, I think, in March last season, and immediately oversaw what was a really good period of the season for them. They improved, the results improved, the numbers improved. But when I look at the squad and the business they're doing, it's hard, I think, to make a case for them kind of kicking on from there, especially when you consider that Lawler took over from Pete Wild, who himself should have been a very capable manager. Key players have left. Elliot Bonds has gone to Salford. Zach Medley's gone to York. When you lose two players to basically two of the biggest spenders in League Two, it's probably not a great sign. Matty Virtue moves to Swindon, probably less of a loss. And then a couple of other key players. Ethan Ennis had a very good loan. He's gone back to Manchester United, and the fact that he's now being linked to Stockport, I think, tells you everything about his qualities. And then sadly, Denver Hume retired a couple of days ago. He sustained a really nasty injury back in November with a bleed to the brain, and seemingly hasn't been able to recover from that. So wishing him all the best. The recruitment just seems very strange, I would say. Quite a big focus on kind of Irish form. You've got Josh Thomas in from Swansea, who's had two Irish loans in the last two seasons, one in Northern Ireland, one in the Republic of Ireland. They brought in a senior player from Waterford and a youth player from Waterford as well.
That's their sibling club.
I know. And then the ones who've got some kind of EFL calibre, Andy Cannon should be decent. Danny Andrews kind of hopping about window to window for basically whatever club needs a decent left foot, but I'm not particularly sure he's can be considered a top League Two player anymore. Kane Thompson-Summers as well looks okay. They haven't really replaced Ryan Graydon, who left in the summer. Ched Evans is the man they turn to for goals, who's obviously in the twilight of his career as well. So yeah, I mean, there's enough in there. I think Lawler certainly could be someone who could be a very good manager, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he does kick on, and he's someone that we like and talk about a lot in the future weeks. But a couple of months of decent performances from a squad that should have been capable of much more than what they were getting anyway, considering the players they've left as well. 17th seems right for me for Fleetwood.
What's right for Shrewsbury Town? 16th, we reckon. 19th last season, so this would be a rise of 3 places. They got sucked into the old League One to League Two relegation vortex, the magnet, the League One to League Two relegation magnet. They got sucked down towards a relegation scrap and saved by a local hero called Gavin Cowan. He came from Brackley Town. He is local to Shrewsbury, played for Shrewsbury, even did a podcast with ex-Shrewsbury Town teammates, your friend of mine, Dave Edwards, the nicest man in football, and Sam Aston. And Dave Edwards is now his assistant, and Sam Aston's son, I think I'm right in saying, is part of the Shrews Academy. So very much a kind of family and friends affair here, and they smashed it when they came in. A mid-table record from February onwards. They won 8, they lost 8, they didn't score many, but they didn't concede many, sorted the defence out. Like quite a few clubs at the level, they're in a position where they've got quite an old school chairman who is overseeing a decline pretty consistently and clearly struggling to match the costs needed to run a League Two club at the moment and be competitive. Rumours of a takeover over the last few years, just like Colchester and Tranmere, remain only that right now, nothing confirmed as happening. So that's a bit of an issue, it feels like. They've lost not a huge amount, a lot of chaff. John Marquis, Ishmael Kabio is a decent loanee for them. But I like what they've done recruitment-wise. I think for years, Shrewsbury have felt like one of the worst EFL clubs in terms of recruitment. Almost kind of lifeless in their squad building.
Lifeless.
Developing talent, playing style. And I think Gavin Cowan is on the front foot to address that. Arkell, Jude Boyd and Byron Pendleton will bring a lot at right wing back. Josh Davison up front we call the Labrador because he runs and runs and runs and runs. Technically not always perfect, but he did score on the weekend. In midfield, Jay Turner-Cook from Halifax with a lovely left peg, and Jack Price, the old boy, 33, former Wolves midfielder, local to Shrews, will come and play a bit of a mentor role for two youngsters I'm going to mention in a second. Isaac Fletcher, we both like him quite a lot. They've picked up from Barrow. He was a classic good player in a bad situation last year, scores goals from midfield. And up front, Joe Bode, could be anything really, big striker. Luton signed him off Gills. He's suffered injuries. He's not broken in at Luton. Can he re-find himself at Shrews? They retained Luca Hall and Josh Raffles, which is massive for them. And I'm excited about stuff here. I'm really excited about two young midfielders, really young. Isaac England, 18, lefty, kind of Adam Wharton style. And I don't use that comparison lightly. And Will Gray, who started the last 4 games of the season and started in the Cup as well. He's more of a energy box-to-box tackler type, and England he's got the number 4 shirt. He's the nice lefty passer. So lots to be excited about, I think. I like what Cowan did when he came in, and I think it could continue to move them up the food chain a little bit in League Two terms. But of course, there's a lot of ifs here. There's a lot of potential in the squad. There's quite a lot of hypotheticals, and he needs to put it all together. It's not a proven squad for the level by any means, and particularly at the very top of the pitch. I'm not convinced by the striker option. So I'm feeling fairly bought in, which I hope comes across. I'm excited about the Gavin Cowan era, and I think 16th would be a nice little jump up the table for them. 15th, Colchester United. This would be a drop of 3 places from 12th last season. They had a great 4 months, October to December, where Colu looked electric. One of the best teams in the league at that point. Lisby, Anderson, Tavide, and Bick, Jack Payne. They were absolutely purring. And they had great underlying numbers, and we were all in. And then they had some injuries, and the young players couldn't stay consistent, and they won 6 of their last 20. They've had a ton of failed takeovers as well. Robbie Cowling trying to sell, it seems, but struggling. Alexandra Pato had a go. John Terry had a go.
Yeah.
US investors. That's a bit of an issue, gives a bit of a bad smell.
He gave an interview to the local press a couple of weeks ago saying that basically football has to change, which suggests that he's struggling a bit, I think. And I mean, it's a good point, to be fair.
So, yeah, best thing for them is that Danny Cowley and Nicky Cowley are a manager and assistant manager. Amazing managers for Colchester to have, really, in this context. Ties to the local area, very committed, very good. But they've lost some big players. Lisby and Edwards, the wide attackers who brought so much pace. Reed in midfield was important for them. Flanagan at the back, Macy in goal. These are all important players. And they've signed Sean Raggett, who I'm not sure has really got it in him anymore. Jake Leake from Oldham. Paul Digby, midfielder from Dundee. Bradley Ian Vian comes back to the club where he started on loan from Peterborough, where it hasn't worked out. Lota Tala will be their goalkeeper. Oscar Thorne's come back to the club where he started at Lincoln, where he couldn't break through. I'm not that into it. Couple of youngsters I'm excited to see. They've got a good academy. Milton Oney, midfielder. Frankie Terry, John Terry's nephew, has broken in. And Samuel Kuffour Jr., 23-year-old defender, son of Samuel Kuffour of Bayern and Ghana fame. One of my favourite sons out of hundreds, it seems, in the EFL at the moment. So I'm pretty concerned about them, if I'm honest. And it's only really the Cowleys that give me hope of anything as good as 15th. But if they were to leave, I'd be worried about Colu dropping like a stone. 14th.
Yeah, we've got Rotherham United, which is maybe a bit higher than I thought I'd have them before doing the research. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're another one of these teams that gets relegated out of League One and immediately struggles. They've made quite a few changes behind the scenes. Steve McLaren has come in as their head of football.
Class. Former England manager, head of football for a League Two club.
I never really get these appointments. I don't see why a guy who's basically never held this role before, who probably has limited knowledge at the time of coming into the club of League Two quality and players and managers, and it kind of felt like they bungled the recruitment process for a manager quite heavily, where it took them a long time. They were linked to various managers before landing on Alex Bruce, son of Steve Bruce. So you'd think there might be some kind of familiarity between McLaren and Bruce prior to him getting the job. Now, what I would say is Bruce has been Carl Robinson's assistant manager at Salford. Obviously, Salford have been a decent team over the last couple of years. Carl Robinson's last assistant that went into senior management was John Massinho, and he has done okay for himself. So I'm not going to say that Bruce is going to be good, but I'm also not going to say he's bad. He could be anything, and clearly comes from his dad has done some pretty good stuff in management in the past too, so he knows the job pretty well. But they've lost some key players. Sam Nombe, clearly the biggest loss. He goes to MK Dons. Despite playing for a poor side for the last couple of seasons with Rotherham, he scored a lot of goals. And I don't think personally that Paul Mullin is a particularly good replacement. I don't necessarily think Tom Bradshaw is a particularly good replacement. It feels like they are signing a lot of players who are dining out on previous successes, whose bodies are not what they once were. Joe Powell's another good player as well.
He's moved on. Really identify with that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they basically could have signed us to play up front. Sean Raggett stays in League Two. He hasn't been a particularly good signing for Rotherham, it's fair to say. They brought in some decent midfielders. I really like Osama Ashley. I thought he'd have a big season last season for Salford. He didn't, but obviously has a decent relationship with Alex Bruce. Had some injury issues, but he should be a good presence in the middle of the park. I'm excited to see Jilly Biabu, who was on loan from Sheffield United. Had a really good loan last season at Forest Green in the National League. Good ball carrier who can play left wing back or left wing. Can Ted Can replace Cameron Dawson? Maybe he can.
Yes.
I don't know. He's 6'7" keeper, but they probably need a new keeper. Cameron Dawson, no longer at the club. Ted Can is the only goalkeeper there at the moment. So a lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns. As I say, some decent midfield options alongside Kean Hayes in the middle of the park. But apart from that, maybe if Mullin is playing in a side that are decent and they do create chances for him, maybe he could catch fire again. But it's been a while since he's been scoring goals, and the same can be said of most of their strikers. So, yes, Rotherham 14th.
Swindon, we love them.
Whoa.
They finished 9th last season, 75 points plus 11. That does not tell the whole story, though. They were second in the league with 15 games to go. Second in a league with 3 automatic promotion spots and 4 more playoff spots. And they finished 9th. Because after a pretty embarrassing situation, which saw them get them kicked out of the EFL trophy, losing to Shrewsbury on Valentine's Day was the catalyst for a poor end to the season. They won 4 of 15 and dropped all the way out of the playoffs. And in Ian Holloway, they have a very emotional leader. That means in the good times, it can feel amazing. And in the bad times, it generally can feel pretty horrible. And he tries to fight fire with fire. And sometimes that creates way more fire rather than put out the fire. Overall, you have to say he's done a great job at Swindon. They were really teetering when he arrived, 22nd in the league, and he turned the ship around and then challenged for 3/4 of last season. But how will he respond to the tailspin from last season in the context of the ownership, who have completely lost the trust of the fan base as well? And he's kind of on the side of the owners from what I can see. And it's just a bit of a powder keg, I think, at the moment. A lot of unhappiness kind of bubbling under the surface, waiting to basically see what happens at the start of the season. I think if they have a good start, things will calm down, as they often do, and if not, things could get pretty ugly. They've lost like Will Wright, Billy Bowden, Junior Hoylett, Darren Oldacre, loads of loanees. It was a massive squad last season, and what's left behind is quite a lot younger. They look quite young. Swindon, 9 of their 22 outfielders as we record are
Ollie Palmer doesn't look young.
22 or under. No, they've got some experience in there still. Ollie Palmer, Ollie Clark, Ryan Tafazoli, for example. They've brought in Mitch Clark, the right back, Stefan Negru, quite like that signing. Joseph Hungbo will have
very rare to see someone move directly from Oxford to Swindon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be throwing pigs' heads at him if the two teams play each other in.
Have they read the handbook?
If you want to sack me, sack me. You want to find me. Joseph Hungbo will have at least 2, but possibly no more than 5 games where he looks like absolute dynamite. I note that he's already had one in the cup.
Yeah.
And if he was to be fit for the whole season, Hungbo would be a dynamite attacking left-sider at the level. But that's what I thought this time last year with Wigan, and it didn't really come off. Quite a few centre-backs have signed. James DeBio, Sam Inwood, both on loan from Hull and Bolton. Lots of young players I like. Joel McGregor, Billy Kirkman, Joe Snowden, Ben Middlemass. I like Gavin Kilkenny, the big switch, but he's broken his ankle. I like Fletcher Holman, but he's having hamstring surgery. So all a bit of a mess. There's like a strong core of about 14, 15 players with some youngsters that could supplement that, but it feels messy to me.
And there's also there is a Holloway trajectory where it often is the case with his managerial reigns, that there are good times, and then when the bad times come, things spiral pretty quickly. But then that's not to say that if that does happen, then they'll probably kind of reroute. But it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't start particularly well, especially because there's a lot of fan unrest after what happened at the end of last season.
Amen. We've got them in 13th.
Ali, it used to be a nightmare taking holidays during the football season. I've just discovered that taking a holiday the week before the football season with the 1-24s research is the bigger nightmare. But it no longer is during the season anymore because you can keep up to date with the leagues and all of the games with NordVPN.
That is correct. Watching sports while you're abroad, no longer the issue it once was. So get yourself away for some well-deserved sun, sea and suspicious meats. You don't have to miss a single kick of football when you're abroad now. Live stuff, highlights, all of it. With NordVPN, you can switch your location from anywhere in the world in order to access the content you pay for and enjoy at home. I also use NordVPN while booking flights to avoid price discrimination. It's really easy to use, one of the fastest VPNs out there. Also, great for cybersecurity, which I take very seriously. It can shield your online activities from hackers and make public Wi-Fi safer to use. It's just a great and important addition to modern life.
And we've got an exclusive discount for NTT20 listeners, a discounted price and 4 extra months for free by heading to nordvpn.com/NTT20. That's nordvpn.com/NTT20.
In 12th, George, we've got a team that have always been a bit of a slippery eel for us in the 1-24s.
Yep.
Sometimes
accusations of bias.
We often just get them wrong. So we've reacted to that this year by sticking them right slap bang in the middle of the table.
Where they finished last season. Well, they finished 11th last season. We've got them 12th this time around. It does feel like with Lee Bell
Alexandra
and Crew Alexandra, we're kind of stuck in limbo a bit because Lee Bell had an amazing start to life at Crew. Led them towards the top of League Two and dreaming of promotion. Turned down, do you remember, he was very strongly linked to the Burton Albion job before Gary Bowyer got it and he turned them down. But now, after a disappointing mid-table finish, it wouldn't surprise me that if things don't go well this season, then it might be the end of this cycle. They've lost a lot of key players. Again, 2 massive loanees for them. Tommy O'Reilly, I'd say one of the best attacking players in the whole division last season. And Emre Tezgel, one of the best kind of poacher strikers in the division last season. Both loans over and have moved on. Tezgel's moved on elsewhere. O'Reilly's still yet to move out again from Villa, so maybe he could come back, but it would be a surprise.
They'll both be, Tezgel's at Wickham, O'Reilly will be top end League One.
Yeah, you think so, exactly.
That's where he's being pitched anyway, so that's what they are losing.
Sanders, Connolly, Powell all leaving as well. But with Crew, the issues I've had in the past has been around their recruitment, but it does feel like, again, there's been a bit of a change of strategy and they've gone after some real quality rather than a kind of blanket or rather than kind of loads of scattergun approach. It's more pointed. Luke Offord, I think, is a very, very good League Two centre-back. Jordan Gibson, someone that we've seen in the past, can be a really good attacking player in League Two. Joe Wright had a really frustrating season with a couple of loans last season that didn't work out in League One, but we saw with MK Dons in the season before that in League Two that he can be a good player too. So it just feels like an attempt to add quality in certain areas rather than wholesale changes. Is that enough to take them higher up the table? Probably not. They definitely need some more defenders as well. At the moment, you're only kind of looking at Offord and Demetriou as being the 2 senior centre-backs. They need to bring in some centre-backs. I'm sure that they will. But I think there's enough in the team. I think Bella's proven himself to be solid enough not to have to worry about them, but it's hard to see them having the quality to really challenge the top 7.
What if, and I would love so much for this to happen, what if Billington, Taberner, Holacek, Lunt, Agius do what Perry and G, Harry Pickering, Ryan Wintle, Charlie Kirk did? That would be wonderful. There are 10 academy graduates or current scholars in the first team squad, and I absolutely love that. We've got them in 12th. In 11th, we've got Tranmere Rovers. Now, this is probably the biggest surprise to me based on what I assumed I would think before starting my research and what I actually think locking in the 1-24s is feeling positive about Tranmere Rovers. Now, the reasons not to feel positive about Tranmere Rovers are varied. They finished 21st last season with 41 points, but they were on 32 points on New Year's Day with 22 games to play and then got 9 points in 22 to finish the season. They were the worst team by miles in the second half of the season, and that started under Andy Crosby and it continued under Pete Wild. But Darryl Clark is the new manager. And Clark's, he's managed, I think, this is his 7th EFL club in the last sort of 12 years or so. Bristol Rovers, Port Vale, Cheltenham were all really good spells. The Walsall spell, the Barnsley spell, the Bristol Rovers spell kind of ranged from not great to really not very good at all. I still believe there's a good manager there. The big elephant in the room here is the ownership and the fans are at loggerheads. The Palios family and the fans are in a completely loveless marriage, and it has sucked a huge amount of energy out of the whole football club, and that's obviously generally detrimental to a team's success, and we've seen that with Tranmere over the last few years. Palios said the owner, kind of admitted to have taken his eye off the ball a little bit because there's been this protracted takeover which still hasn't gone through, and then said, I've addressed that by spending much of the last 6 months seeing what needs to be done to try and ensure that this season we're chasing the promotion places rather than worrying about relegation. Now, I take owner statements with a massive pinch of salt, but at the very least, what he said there, I think, is reflected in their summer recruitment, which massively surprised me, and I actually think is quite exciting. They've only really lost Amari Patrick, and they've added loads of players that I think are better players than the ones they had before, which has to be a good thing. Jacob Slater, the fullback from Brighton, and Joel Senior, the fullback from Bristol Rovers, should add energy and a bit more attacking output. In midfield, Jordan Davies looked great in the Carabao Cup, and if he can stay fit, he will be great for them. I'm confident of that. You could say the same for Tom Conlon, who's another quality player with an injury history. In attacking areas, how about Tom Ince joining from Watford? Pretty up for that. Think he'll be pretty good. And on the other end of the spectrum, Zayn Okoro, who's a young loanee from Lincoln, who most people that have ever watched him play think could be absolute dynamite, really speedy, really skillful. They've bought, at the top of the pitch, I'm not in love with it, Courtney Baker-Richardson and Joe Ironside at the moment, but hopefully they might add one or two kind of speedier players. And Will Vaulks in midfield, surely is going to be...
He'll do some long throws.
At the very least, good for Tranmere, who, funnily enough, when I think of long throws historically, I think of Tranmere Rovers, I think of Dave Challoner, and that's Will Vaulks' job now. So yeah, I mean, I might be overreacting a bit to the Carabao Cup preliminary game where I thought they looked surprisingly good. I think their centre-backs look decent, full-backs, midfield looks pretty good. At the top of the pitch, I'm not in love with it, but there can be goals throughout a team. You don't have to have good strikers to do well. In fact, I'd go as far as to say strikers are overrated. The big question is Darryl Clark up for it? Can he get his feet under the table?
It's a huge, huge season for him as a manager now.
Big time.
If this doesn't go well after the Bristol Rovers job, then it's hard to see him getting another League Two job, which is tough given he's shown himself in the past to be so capable.
Well, we've chosen to buy into it. A big jump for Tranmere up to 11th place. And in 10th, George.
The team that we had coming first last season, Chesterfield.
Don't remind me.
It's been a weird...
When I die, I want Chesterfield squad.
You're being quite morose today. You had lifeless. You're now talking about when you're going to die.
Loveless marriage.
Yeah.
Everything all right, Ali?
That's not about death.
Everything all right? Yeah, but it's morose, though.
Yeah, it is.
When I die,
if
I die, I want the Chesterfield squad from last season to carry my coffin so that they can let me down one final time.
But the issue with that is... There'd be terrible pallbearers because you got some tiny ones.
Dylan
Markinde and Dobra alongside Dunkley and McFadden. It would be,
I'd be sliding off.
Yeah, you end up on the floor. It feels like the Chesterfield kind of cycle should have ended with a promotion in that season and didn't. Last season they were, and I hope Shay Dunkley doesn't call me out on Twitter again. They were really disappointing. They should have been one of the best teams in the league, and they weren't. They managed to crash the playoffs, but were poor into over two legs against Notts County. The second season in a row where they've kind of snuck into the playoffs and then not really looked up to it when they've got there. For Paul Cook, it's been quite a long time now since he has had tangible EFL success. Obviously, took the Chesterfield out of the National League with a very good squad. And you wonder, again, is this coming to the end of this cycle? And then you look at the players they've lost in terms of quality, especially since January. Sil Swinkles came in and Sammy Braybrook came in Jan and added some real quality in centre-back and centre midfield. They've both moved on, both playing League One football next season. Berry and Darcy, two attacking players on loan, have both left. Armando Dobra has finally got his move. He's gone to Leyton Orient. It made me kind of shudder when I saw that three players of a combined age of, I think, over 100, and Freddie Ladapo, John Fleck and Paddy Madden were all released. It's just kind of the squad building that's gone. A lot of older players at the end of their careers signed and haven't really been able to contribute. Janelle Donasian doesn't really fit into that, but another senior pro that's moved on. Look at the players that have come in. I really like George McEachran, and he should be a player that should suit what Paul Cook likes to do in terms of dominating possession and giving Chesterfield that kind of metronomic passing ability in the middle of the park. Rule Satiriu's back in the EFL, having had a spell soul searching in Jerusalem. I don't think that went particularly well for him. And another player who's looked decent in the past, but hasn't really done it for a while now. The same can be said of Josh Koroma. We know how talented he is, but didn't look great last season back in Leyton Orient in League One. So it no longer looks like one of the best squads in the league. It looks relatively short of quality unless you're happy to kind of turn the clock back on a couple of players. And last season, they were the 7th best team in the league and not much better than that. So a small tumble down to mid-table is how we've got them.
George, in 9th, we've got a newcomer, a returner in Rochdale. Pretty excited about any team that comes up having got 106 points in the National League. Normally bodes well, but unusually perhaps, a change in the dugout.
Yeah, Ian Watson is their new manager. Jim McNulty being poached by Stockport after the playoff final success. Watson joins after a really successful spell at South Shields in the National League North. Seemingly very highly thought of, progressive young manager. So we'll have to see what happens there. And I think it's probably fair to say that had Rochdale not changed manager, we might have them higher, because regular listeners of the League 2 1-24s will know that we are consistently banging the drum that good National League teams, especially teams that amass over 100 points, tend to be already top half League 2 teams at the very, very worst. And that was the case. We had Barnet high last season. I know they finished outside the 7, but certainly their underlying numbers and their starting prices and stuff suggested they were better than that. And Rochdale, they've lost a manager, they've lost their keeper, Watmuff, who was on loan. Karen Gordon has also moved and joining McNulty at Stockport, but otherwise they've managed to retain key players whilst bringing in a lot of quality. Cian Hayes comes in from Peterborough. We know that he's got the quality in League 2. Johnny Smith is another one who really should come down from Wigan in League 1 and offer some wide threat. Sheringham and Maguire both come in from MK, who were both brought in at the time where MK were looking to play out from the back, and probably more suited to this Rochdale side than the one that Paul Warne was building. And then Nils Ramming on loan from Brighton, their new keeper, to replace Watmuff. I think getting keepers in on loan from Brighton tends to be quite a smart option.
Just a blanket, yes.
I mean, he'll probably
be good.
yeah, exactly. Dear Swerve had a very good season last season in the National League. Ian Henderson.
Dear Swerve. Like when you're driving on a country lane at night.
Yeah, basically. Dear Swerve. Dear... what are you saying? Come on, you can't take the piss and then not say it.
I don't know, but I'm not on Rochdale today. No, I think it's Dear Saruve.
Dear Saruve. Yeah, okay, fine. Dear Saruve up top, who had a very good season last season.
Can I just say, because my wife grew up...
Can you not tell that I was pausing there so that we could...
My wife grew up in the countryside, so she's much better at country lanes than me. Important PSA, so I've never had an incident with a deer on a country lane, but there's a good chance I will at some point. And apparently you should definitely not swerve.
Yeah.
And that'll be obvious for many of you, but some of you may be new drivers or potentially about to learn. Don't swerve at foul, game, or deer. And
also, really, you shouldn't smack a deer either.
What?
Tequila smacker. You've got to Saruve instead.
Yeah, okay. Oh, God. Come on. Rochdale. So, what happens when you lose? Saruve. Do you lose a bit of special sauce when you lose your manager of a 106-point team? Or do you think it's just like these players broadly know what they're doing?
I don't know. Yeah. We'll have to see.
Got them 9th.
I think there's also competence there. But I mean, they brought in DeJuan Brown on loan from Derby to be the kind of third striker who... Yeah, I think I would be worried about the goals at the moment, whether Dear Saruve can come back to the EFL and do it. We'll have to see. Henderson is 76 years old, but is still playing for Rochdale. So
he's going for the Japanese striker that's like 70. Ian Henderson is our closest equivalent to that, and he must be protected at all costs.
I think that'll be good.
Costs.
You look at previous playoff winners. Bromley came up and did okay, and then went up the next season. Oldham came up and did well last season. And Rochdale, it's got like 25 more points than both of those teams. So
probably be good. Cool. 8th, Port Vale. The highest finishers of the 4 relegated League 1 teams. And there's definitely a few simulations of this upcoming season where Port Vale really, really smash it under John Brady.
I think there are also some iterations where they might really struggle.
And that's why we've got it 8th. That's balance.
Do you not think, just before because I want to tee you up for this, it feels like their transfer window would have been really, really good in 23-24.
Okay. Thank you for teeing me up with that. Yeah, I mean, I think they are the best equipped to not suffer the League One to League Two relegation magnet towards the very bottom of the league. They had the weirdest season ever last season, Port Vale. They were basically relegated for the whole season.
Yeah.
The issue came at the start of the season where they were posting very good underlying numbers, taking among the most shots in the league, facing among the fewest, losing almost every game. It doesn't happen very often, and it happened to them. So whatever the reason you think for that happened. It meant that they were basically down for the whole season. They also had a mad cup run where they beat Bristol City, they beat Sunderland, and then they lost to Chelsea in the quarterfinals. So they did have some positive aspects of the season. And John Brady's come in. Now, he's a big culture man, and I think that's quite appropriate for the situation. He has also had this exact scenario before with Northampton. Relegated from League One when he came in a bit too late to make an impact, turned it around, finished 4th in the first season. That was when Bristol Rovers scored 7 on final day to jump above them, and then came back strong to finish 3rd and get automatically promoted. So I do think he's well equipped to turn this around compared to, for example, Chris Hogg at Northampton. It's not a big churn situation because they didn't really have any key players last season, but let's go through the signings that you've referred to. I mean, Jackson Smith in goal, I think, is a good pickup. Jasper Moon, Lewis Montsma and Aaron McGowan in defence. Matthew Craig and Carl Dempsey in midfield. Onel Hernandez is here to bring wing play and vibes.
Imagine him coming to League Two in 23-24.
Incredible. And then at the top of the pitch, I mean, who knows? Max Watters.
23-24.
Tyree Simpson.
23-24.
I think we might even be talking like 22-23.
Yeah. Mo Fowl.
Yeah.
It's all players who basically like 3 years ago you'd be like, there's no way they'll be in League Two at this stage. Now it's like, oh, okay, but like John Brady feels like that kind of manager who might be able to, because there's, it's not an age thing with these guys.
Yeah.
And they've obviously got the ability.
I think Fowl might be amazing. So I'm just going to leave that there. I think all areas of the squad look pretty good on paper, and I like the manager. I'm so excited for George Hall. I do not think he should be playing in League Two, and I think he'll show that if he can stay fit quite quickly. Unbelievably speedy attacking midfielder, could play out wide as well. I find the strikers intriguing, but I'm not convinced in any of them individually, to be honest. And yeah, we've got them in 8th, basically, and I think they could be higher. But we have to accept the spectre, the grim reaper of League One relegation, which can be very difficult for clubs. But we think they're the best placed to get over that. And we don't have them in the top 7 because we love our top 7, George, and we couldn't find a place for Port Vale within it. And it starts with Barnet.
Yeah, I think if you're like us and you kind of put a lot of weight in data,
Put a lot of weight on.
America was a lot. You put a lot of weight on underlying numbers and starting prices and things like that. You can't go into the season not view Barnet as being a team that you've got to like, even if they finished outside the top 7, because the numbers are so good consistently and because they've still got Dean Brennan, who's delivered a 100+ point season. And they are different to loads of, like, it's easy to kind of pile them in with Rochdale and with York and with Salford and all these other teams that, it's been a long time, but like all these teams that have come up. But Barnet are different because even though they amass the similar points tally and they've had a good first season up at League Two level, they're not the big spenders like all the others. And they have lost key players this summer. And the fact that, looking at Callum Stead, who's moved to Cambridge, Ryan Glover, who's moved to Stockport, and Mark Shelton, who's staying in the league but gone to kind of big spenders York. Those are 3 key players to have lost. But they brought in some quality. Charlie Lakin is someone who I like at Walsall. Will Wright brings a bit of EFL know-how and is a decent defender and ball player who should fit the way that Brennan likes to play as well. 2 players I'm excited to see, Isaiah Noel Williams and Jack Maskell, who come in from National League South, National League North, who have posted some really good numbers, have some really good reports from both of those. But they kind of brought in, not necessarily to be the main men, but to play kind of supporting roles. And if they are good, then should be able to step up. Kabonga Shishmanga is finally scoring goals at League Two level. He's always threatened to do so, and he'll be a key player for Barnet this season. Worry a bit about quality out wide. Kind of seems like last season was maybe their chance to really kind of press on and be a top 3 team. But even if the performances themselves regress a bit, then I still think they'll be a playoff challenger. Last season was just a bit of a quirk as to how they managed to post those kind of numbers and not be better in my mind. So and is that the first in my mind of the 1-24s possibly? But yeah, Barnet in 7th.
In 6th, we have a team that I think are going through the biggest overhaul in the entire EFL this summer. That is in terms of the playing squad, and it's certainly in terms of the dugout and the playing style. George, it's Walsall in 6th.
I'm really, really intrigued by Walsall, and I'm quite excited about them as well. I was a big fan of the team that Matt Sadler built. I was kind of strong on them this time last year, and initially looked quite smart to say they were bounced back because they started the season really well before dropping off alarmingly. And I would say that after Matt Sadler left, after a brief kind of improvement, things kind of really spiraled. This is a proper, as you say, they've cleared the decks. Lee Grant is in as manager, who I think it would be foolish to judge him too harshly on what happened at Huddersfield. He initially came in, was very, very popular, with a good squad, posted some good numbers, and after a couple of months, things looked rosy before it kind of turned and didn't go particularly well. Huddersfield, to me, are one of those teams where you just cannot judge a manager too harshly. They have rattled through a few in the last couple of seasons, none of whom have had success. We've also seen recently managers like take Martin Patton, for example, had a difficult first spell at Burton, then gets another job and delivers promotion. I think Lee Grant is someone who, with his coaching chops being... Do you cut your chops? Yeah, you do.
I have to cut my chops, otherwise I can't fit them in my mouth.
Joke. He with his chops cut.
You cut your teeth.
Yeah, he cut his teeth. What do you do with the chops?
I'm just hungry now.
Yeah.
He's got like managerial chops.
Yeah, but what do you do with them? Do you just pick them up?
I have no idea.
He collected his chops at Huddersfield.
He dry-aged his chops.
Yeah, anyway, he comes here, and I think the style of play will change. It'll be less attritional, but it does feel like the end of an EFL era. Like Lakin, Jellis, Cumley, Gordon, Matt, Barrett, Chang, Flint, all move on.
We'll never forget. We will never forget Matt Sadler's 24 to 26.
And that should have been a collection of players that achieved more than they did.
Top of Christmas, 2 seasons in a row.
But I believe that the decision-making at Walsall is good. I believe there are smart people there, and the team that they built under Sadler was a product of that, where they were so dominant for such a long period of time and then had an extraordinary collapse, where I still maintain the performances weren't that bad. They are going hard on non-league talent. And I like that, because as we just spoke about with Rochdale, we know that good non-league players are very good EFL players. You look at Barnet last season, who came up and basically didn't really sign any proven EFL players, and a lot of their players who were good in the National League are now considered to be top-end League 2 players, and a couple have got moves to League 1. They've got 2 players in who were on loan at Yeovil last season. Jed Ward had a brilliant loan spell at Yeovil. Their fans are very keen on him. Declan Skura, a very brief spell at Yeovil before being recalled, a centre-back who was imperious on debut against Bristol City in a 1-0 win last week. Sven Sprangler was brilliant at Newport in the second half of last season. Obviously in League 2. He comes in centre midfield. Lewis Simper, a very good technical midfielder from Sutton, comes in. Isaac Moore, who is at Solihull as a holding midfielder on loan from Coventry, he comes in, having had a good loan there too. And then a couple of players we've seen have a good time, young players have a good time in League 2 recently. Reece Smith was very good on the left-hand side for a poor Harrogate side last season. Charlie Crew was good in a brief loan spell at Doncaster in their title-winning season, less good last season in League 1. So it kind of feels like these all players who have shown potential and current ability recently and look set to be, they are taking the chance to bring them in at a time where their star is on the rise, and I like that. Great to have another Soji in the EFL as well.
God, thank God we've got one.
Nephew of FA and Sam, who scored a few goals in National League North last season too. So I just like it. I think it seems to me like it's not scattergun. It's clearly with recruitment, I think pinpointing a profile of player and a level where you think the players are going to be value is a smart thing to do. They're not going out and recruiting players who are dropping down. They're recruiting players whose careers are on the up. And I know that Jed Ward had to have a brilliant game against Bristol City, but I don't think it's a bad thing or a coincidence that they went away to a championship side and beat them in their first game, which is going to do them a world of good when it comes to the season starting. So,
and who will be? This is
Walsall.
The cherry on top.
Okay,
who will be this season's Freddie Draper, Nathan Lowe, Daniel Kanu? 3 years in a row, they have signed a loanee striker that has rocked their world. And you just wonder if they've got someone up their sleeve.
I also wonder, the other one to mention that I haven't in terms of National League form is Andy Dallas, who's kind of threatened so many times to potentially, he's got a lot of goals in non-league. But you look at the teams he's played for in the League Two, like a poor Barrow side, a poor Morecambe side. Like now it feels like he's finally going to be coming into a team that might create chances. Scored a lot of goals last season for Solihull, still 27 years old. He's quick, he's a good finisher. This could be the season where he breaks out. But they've got Aaron Presley as well, who we know is a pretty good kind of all-action attacking player, striker, who started the game for them at Bristol City too.
So that's the first 2 playoff teams. 2 more to go. If you're new here, welcome. We don't start and end with the 1-24 preseason predictions. We take this EFL season all the way to its end at the end of May. And we think we cover these leagues closer than anyone else in the world. So if you're interested in the Championship, League One, League Two, getting on board with us for the season tends to be quite a good idea, I reckon. Podcasts every Monday, 1 episode for each division, looking back at the weekend action. A betting show on a Thursday. That's this podcast feed or YouTube channel, however you're watching or listening to this. But so much more as well. NTT20.com is run via Substack. That's written pieces, 3 or 4 a week if you're a paid subscriber, and bonus podcasts, at least 1 a week for the whole season, recapping midweek fixtures, for example, or answering your questions. Because it's through Substack, every post gets delivered straight into your inbox. Really easy to read or listen to that content. You can listen to all the bonus podcasts on Spotify as well. It's very easy to set that up. So that's nice too. And in fact, because you might have thought to yourself, how do they actually do this show? Well, of course, we have our own 1-24s, and then we have to mash them together for what you're listening to now. We like to talk about where we've disagreed. We like to talk about stances that only one of us had and the other does not agree with. And we do an NTT20 1-24s extra. And it goes out on NTT20.com for paid subscribers in just a couple of days' time. We're keeping it civil for now on this show for the kids, but it's all going to come out later this week. So if you're interested in hearing where we differ, sign up to NTT20.com. You can do so with a 14-day free trial right now. You'll get all of the mountain of season preview content that's been going out for free, and that podcast as well, which drops later this week. So do check out the NTT20.com free trial using the link in the description, NTT20.com/countdown. Boom, 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 ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-da-ba-dum.
Boom.
Oldham Athletic. In 5th, I think it's fair to say if you're into Walsall, I'm into Oldham Athletic. They finished 10th last season, their first back at the level. Started off kind of solid, mid-table, bottom halfy, and then went on a big run to touch the playoffs, but fell short in the end. The manager, Mickey Mellon, 6 promotions on his CV, 2 from this level. As a club, they have enjoyed 4 straight seasons of improvement. They have a good structure around Mellon. Greg Strong, the head of recruitment, Darren Royal, the CEO. The owner, Frank Rothwell, is one of the more iconic owners in the EFL. They'll have a top 7 attendance, a big fan base that's very, very engaged and excited. How are things, Oldham? Things are good. They've lost literally no one important, although there's a chance that someone might come and get Matthew Hudson, the keeper.
Imagine if you're an Oldham player that's left this summer and you're listening to this and you hear that.
In footballing terms, everyone's important. Every person on the planet is unique and important, but they've not lost anyone important on the pitch. And they've added some real intrigue for me. Gus Scott Morris is a right back who scored 17 goals for Southend last season.
3 first names.
And 17 goals last season, the season before. Gus, Scott and Morris. 3 first names. Ryan Delaney, centre-back, fine. Ollie Norburn, midfield general, and Keenan Appiah-Forson, also signed from the National League, really excited about him. Noah Chilvers comes back from Scotland, and I like him. Elliot Nevitt will run and run and run at the top of the pitch and might re-find his shooting boots. A couple of loans in there as well. I think the squad is great. From keeper through to centre-backs and full-backs, good midfield options. The top of the pitch is where it's not amazing, but I think Callum Kavanagh, who's 22, can come on a lot this season. Fondop was brilliant back end of last season. I like Chilvers as well. I have very few concerns, really, other than that we think there are 4 teams that are better or will be better than them. So let's see how Oldham go, but I think a jump into the playoff places. And from that point, who knows? In 4th, George, a new member. Another returning member. It's that side, York City. They're going to be probably main characters of the league this season, aren't they? We think they come up with 108 points from the National League, and they sacked the manager that helped them accumulate that points tally just a couple of weeks ago, Stuart Maynard.
And replaced him with a manager in Scott Lindsay, who has obviously took Crawley up incredibly, but has spent the last two jobs, one with MK Dons with one of the biggest budgets in the league, and then one back at Crawley with a lot of the players that he took up, staving off relegation.
Yeah. They lost his first game in charge, and the fans chanted "sacked in the morning" at him. Fair to say they've not connected initially through, I'll be honest, no real fault of Scott Lindsay's. Matt Ugler is the name to bring up here. He is York City's quite bullish and confident and controversial owner. And he sacks Stuart Maynard. That's his prerogative. He's created a bit of a headache for himself in the short term, but it should be pointed out they sacked their manager at the start of the season last season as well, Adam Hinshelwood, who had done a pretty good job in terms of points return, and they got better. So that's what Scott Lindsay needs to do to get the fans on side. They haven't lost a lot. They've changed their keeper. They've added Alfie McNally on loan from Fulham in goal. And they've added signings such as Zach Medley from Fleetwood, big lefty defender, Charlie MacArthur, a youngster from Newcastle, Mark Shelton, Frankie Maguire, Arthur Reed's probably the biggest name in terms of proven League Two quality. Harry Boyes, a left back from Southend, we're quite excited about as well. It's hard not to get excited about a team that got 96 points and then followed it up by getting 108 points. That normally bodes pretty well for League Two. I guess a bit like Rochdale. The main question is, well, this group of players obviously know how to play and win together consistently, how to score goals and keep them out at the other end. Lindsay's style of play is not that dissimilar to Stuart Maynard's, but it is a different man in the dugout, and that can come with tweaks, and it doesn't always work as well, and the fan base not being on side might have an impact as well. It's intriguing.
My prediction for this, because I thought long and hard about where to have them, because had Maynard still been there, I think they would have been in my top three. I think this either goes well and then this is all forgotten, or what's much more likely is that Scott Lindsay isn't their manager in a month's time and they will go out and recruit. And we know that they have a lot of money for the level. We know that they are very ambitious and they've got a good squad. And as is often the case, there will in each league there'll be one or two teams who start the season really poorly and still end up in a good position because they change things, and it wouldn't surprise me, especially given the animosities shown towards Lindsay already. And what I don't want to be harsh on Lindsay because he seems like a good guy, like he's very honest in his appraisals, and he's, I love that Crawley side a lot, but it does feel like he's on a bit of a hiding to nothing here. And if things don't go well, I can't imagine Ugler's going to be too stubborn in terms of not making the change. So before we get into our top three, so our three automatically promoted sides, the four teams that we've got there in our top seven with SBK to finish in the top seven, which is the market they've got loads up there. They've got top seven market, top three, winner, promotion, relegation to finish bottom. Barnet, who we have finishing seventh, are 1.82, so just basically 5 to 6 to finish in the top seven. They are kind of joint second favourites to do so. Walsall 3.2, so just shy of 9 to 4 to finish in the top seven. The guys at the SBK not quite as bullish on Walsall as I am. Oldham to finish in the top seven. They've got a 2.72, so just shy of 7 to 4. And York 1.99, so pretty much even money. So if you want to follow us in, SBK prices there for you in the top seven market.
3 teams get promoted automatically from League Two to League One. These are the ones we think will succeed this season. George, starting with the mighty Mariners, Grimsby Town.
Yeah, I still maintain that last season Grimsby were at times the best team in the league, and certainly when they were at their best should have been an automatic promotion challenger, apart from a period kind of around Christmas time where they really dropped off. And I think, as we discussed a lot, their cup exploits probably played a part in that in terms of how much football they were playing and the distraction of games against, early in the season, Manchester United, but then after that, I think it was Brentford, wasn't it? They also are just very, very good recruiters. And normally you would look at the players out column and be concerned. Jays Cabia is the Don Ballard replacement at Leyton Orient. Svan Thorson, having shown some moments of quality, but fundamentally being pretty underwhelming, has returned back to his native Iceland. Darragh Burns, surprisingly, has gone back to Northern Ireland. I was surprised about that. I thought he contributed last season. And another surprising one is Evan Curry, who was released after the club and Curry couldn't agree a new deal. He is still without a club, which is a surprise because he's a player that I like.
Come home, Evan.
Yeah,
all will be forgiven.
Just, come back.
Come on home.
Andy Cook has made his loan permanent. He contributed well in the second half of the season, and with Josh Andrews recruited as well from Gillingham, it does suggest that Dave Artell is committed to playing with a big lad up front, which maybe isn't the worst thing. It's not really what we associate Dave Artell with. It's not how they started last season. But if you look at teams that win League Two or that get promoted out of League Two, attritional, relatively direct seems to be the one that does it. I think there's probably a pitch element to that, where the pitches get quite bad from kind of November to the end of the season. And if you want to play slick passing football, as we'll discuss in a second, maybe, it can get quite difficult to do that. Kieran Green signed the new deal, which is obviously massive, and just quite excited to see the players that they have brought in. They have signed Ewan Morgan from Brentford, who had a really good loan last season at Shrewsbury. Looks like an exciting player to my eye. We've also got Eden Pruti in from Sutton, who's an aggressive left-footed defender who comes with rave reviews from non-league. Cian Doyle from Bray, another one that I'm excited to see. And Grimsby are now one of these teams where their recruitment is so strong that you can be relatively sure that when they are looking to recruit players from places like non-league or from Ireland, they tend to be pretty good at doing that. Artell is a manager I'm happy just to kind of invest in. He has, over 2 seasons, taken Grimsby from being at the bottom end of League Two to being a team that now have proper promotion credentials. They were in the playoffs last season. I think they'll kick on again this season. Grimsby Town in third, and automatic promotion for the Mariners.
Bingo. Bristol Rovers, second. Steve Evans is the manager. They finished 14th last season in a season where they both lost 10 games in a row at one point, which spelled the end of Darrell Clarke, and then won 8 games in a row towards the end of the season, which was the longest winning streak by any team in the EFL all season. From the point that Evans was appointed, it wasn't a great start, 1 win in his first 7, but he did get things sorted. From the 27th of January, at which point they were third bottom, they got 5 points more than anyone else in the league. Fair to say we are buying that as an indicator for what they'll be like this season. Evans has been promoted out of this league before with Stevenage, with Rotherham. You could argue with Crawley as well, albeit he left a month or 2 before they were coronated. Bristol Rovers have very wealthy Kuwaiti owners who had overseen a remarkable collapse from what looked like a fairly healthy League One status to flirting with League Two relegation, but they've appointed Evans, as many owners have done before, and for the most part, if not always, brackets Rotherham recently, it tends to have the desired effect in the short term. They haven't lost very much in terms of outgoings, and the signings are a classic Steve Evans smorgasbord. Steve Evans tapas, the buffet, if you like, of Steve Evans. Big defenders, Kofi Barmer, Kieran Kelly, Ben Purrington. Intriguing loanee Keenan Goff on loan from Charlton. I'm excited to watch. He's a defender. A fullback with a great cross and a good set-piece delivery in Tom James. They've also got Macaulay Southam-Hales on the right side to do that too. A midfield general and culture setter, Richie Smallwood, who's like the Jordan Henderson of League Two. A target man in Tommy Lee, who wins a lot of the good long passes forward. Some nippy, skillful attackers in Jack Aitchison and Bobby Camwer. And a potential wonder kid in Reece Alexander Russell Denny. That's a double barrel, which you just don't see very often. No. He's on loan from Spurs because last season Spurs sent them Yusuf Akamrich, and that went very well indeed. How good will Reece Alexander Russell and Denny be? We'll find out. So yeah, I think it's a pretty big, good squad and a manager that generally has success once he gets things in place, and I think he does. It's a pretty rabid fan base, a bit like Grimsby, that I think are just bang up for it, and when they are, I think that's really positive for the team. They've got the requisite size and strength throughout the pitch to handle the robustness that you need in League Two. Good delivery, good target men, skillful wingers. I don't have many question marks here, and I think they'll win automatic promotion. But I'm afraid we could not avoid the dazzling glare of Salford City's new orange kit. They've changed the colour of the team shirts back to orange, which they're very keen to tell us was the historical colour of Salford City before it was red. So the kits are quite bright. The transfer business has been quite bright too, George. We think they'll win the league.
Yeah, it's funny this, because I went into my research really keen not to have Salford winning the league. Like, I've got a theory around style of play and what generally tends to work. I think we often see that the best team in League Two, so the team that dominates the ball, creates the best chances, has the best XG ratio, often doesn't win it. And there are various reasons for that around player quality and defensive quality and ability to pass out from the back and pitches and other things. But I just can't really get away from Salford City, who were beaten playoff finalists last season. They've sacked Carl Robinson and they brought in Peter Klimowski, who will now be known as the Clam.
Oh yeah, we're keeping our chowder dry.
Yeah, who is an Ange Postecoglou disciple, previously his assistant manager in the past, and was his assistant when Yokohama F. Marinos won the J-League. He's had various different managerial roles in Japan. I'm not going to delve too far into them. His Wikipedia page reads like he might have written quite a lot of glowing references about his own playing style. He was formerly the Malaysia manager. I'm not going to go overboard with Klimowski. We don't have them top because of Klimowski.
He's basically the biggest question mark.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you look at the squad itself, and obviously the players that they've brought in, this is a squad under a wealthy and ambitious ownership group. We were told last season that anything but promotion for Carl Robinson was going to be seen as a failure. He came as close as you possibly can to delivering promotion by getting to the playoff final, and he was still sacked. This is a team where they brought in Luke Molyneux, who was the key attacking player for Doncaster when they won the league 2 seasons ago. He was still the key attacking player for Doncaster last season in League One, and yet they've managed to prize him out of Doncaster and bring him back to League Two, where last time he scored, 16 goals and 12 assists, I think, in League Two, having posted some good numbers the season before. He will be one of, if not the best attacking player in League Two next season. They brought in Macaulay Langstaff, whose goal-scoring ability got him a championship move to Millwall, where he wasn't quite good enough to justify, or to he still was a decent enough player for them, but his goal scoring instincts didn't necessarily seem to translate. But at Notts County, he was phenomenal. He scored 28 goals in 46 games in League Two for Notts County in that season before he got his move. So in that, he brought in basically the best. Well, I'm going to say better. They brought in a better striker than any League Two club could possibly think they could sign, and a better winger than any League Two club thought they could possibly sign. And Joe Powell, they brought in another really good ball-playing midfielder who comes in alongside George Grant, and Callum Cisse has been playing as number 10. Elliot Bonds comes in from Fleetwood, who offers a lot of energy and bite in midfield alongside Osterfield and Butcher. They've got loads of depth at centre-back as well. Will Ameson comes in to join Oluwo and Brandon Cooper and Michael Rose. Ollie Turton will continue on the right-hand side. Will Norris comes in to replace Matty Young, who's the loanee who's moved on, but Norris comes in as a kind of senior keeper. Luke Garbutt, still there at left wing back too. This is a club that was so close to breaking into to getting promoted last season, who quite clearly have levelled up. We'll see what happens with the manager, but early signs, given the stats from their Carabao Cup game, where we saw them dominate possession to a ridiculous extent against Shrewsbury, where they had 72% possession, 545 accurate passes, 620 attempted passes. It does seem like they are going to be very, very possession heavy, but they should have the players to do it. So we'll see how that develops over the course of the season. But despite wanting to take Salford on when assessing who I think are going to win the league, I think when the squad is as good as theirs compared to everyone else's, it's pretty hard not to have them top.
Yeah, they are the favourites with SBK 5.0 as we record. Bristol Rovers, who we have second, are the second favourites to win League Two at 9.6. Grimsby, we have third, are the sixth favourites at 12.0. And that's our League Two 1 to 24s. Accrington and Northampton in the bottom two. Newport, Exeter, Crawley, Cheltenham and Gillingham to take us up to 18th. To round out the bottom half, Fleetwood, Shrewsbury, Colchester, Rotherham and Swindon. And then the top half, Crewe, Tranmere and Chesterfield, with Rochdale and Port Vale. In the playoffs, Barnet, Walsall, Oldham and York. And the top three, Grimsby, Bristol Rovers and Salford City. What's your 1 to 24? Let us know in the comments section. What do you think we've got most wrong? We love hearing that as well. And with thanks to SBK for sponsoring the 1 to 24 episodes. The same episode exists for League One and the Championship, wherever you got this one. We will be back in a couple of days for a EFL betting preview, where we will make our betting picks across all 3 leagues. That's sponsored by SBK. And if you sign up to SBK using the link in the description, you can get £60 in free bets if you place a first bet of £20. T's and C's do apply with that. Please read them. George, what fun. The only thing that's absolutely nailed on in League 2 is that these predictions will be wrong because it's the best league in the world and crazy stuff happens all the time.
Yes.
Thanks for listening or watching. Go out